Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. The next Wasteless World Talks are here with Bill and Noah today. And the word today, it's threshold. And I'm really looking forward to hear more from you. And I will start with you, Noah, today. Please, if you close your eyes and you hear the term threshold, which came first to your mind?
The edge of something, being on the cusp of something, a doorway. There's a threshold at a doorway. It's an interesting word because it's more complex than it needs to be. But it's at this point, I think threshold for me indicate the potential for something new.
Yeah, okay. Bill, what about you if you close your eyes and you hear the term threshold? What came first?
I love the word. A threshold is walking through the door to something on the other side. And I see myself always, whenever I think of that word, I see myself on this side of the threshold and not on that side of the threshold. Why is that? It also means to me death. Not in a bad way. Because I think that's where we go after we die. We walk into the next room. I don't subscribe to this heaven and hell sort of explanation. It's simply walking into the next room. I think that people after they die, they can hear us, they can see us. I think they can nudge certain things our way, put things in our path. And I think that we can hear them also if we truly listen. It's not heaven and earth. It's the next room. And so when you say threshold, that's what I think. I mean, I always think I'm on this side. I can look down. I can see that threshold. I'm one step and I can be there. Good word.
Thank you both. For me, I have heard the term before, but I never look in a vocabulary. What does it mean? To be honest, I was thinking that it has something to do with trash, so with garbage. I never, because it sounds so to me, and maybe surprising for you. You know that the capital of my country, it's called Praha. Praha, it's generally threshold. The term Prague, P-R-A-H, is generally threshold. And it is connected to some lady which says that she saw a man who cut the threshold out of wood, and there should be a city which will have 1,000 whatever. So this is the story how we explain. But to be honest, I never ever in the 30 years I have heard it many times, but I never thought it's this simple piece of wood or the level of something. So thank you for the explanation. It's quite interesting.
It's I don't know if this is a tradition in the Czech Republic, but it's a tradition in America that after a wedding, the groom carries the bride over the threshold into their home together. So it is this portal, right? It is a portal into something new or different.
There are in my wife comes from the Soviet Union, and there is a custom there. I don't know if it's in the Czech Republic that you do not kiss over the threshold. Do you have that, Michael? Okay.
Never.
I suspect that there are a multitude of customs having to do with the threshold.
Unfortunately, I was not able to hold today the noon meeting with the same term because I was in a factory, so I have to cancel it. But I think that in some countries, there are no thresholds. So in Japan, generally, you don't see them. Many Asian countries, they don't have it. Simple, this piece of wood is not there. And what is interesting, if they are disabled people and you would like to allow the access, you remove the threshold. This is one of the tools to allow the free movement for people, for example, on a wheelchair or something like that. So we are removing them.
I'm curious to research if the threshold is the actual piece of wood that makes up the door frame, or if the threshold is just an embodiment, that piece of wood is just an embodiment of a threshold. Like sometimes the word has multiple meanings, and I'm not sure threshold is specific to the bottom piece of the door frame. I think it's the concept of going through something, and that piece of wood is just an embodiment of that.
I was just about to ask that question, because I had always seen that I don't know where it came from, but my concept was that the threshold was that space between this room and that room.
Well, but they're saying it's like we're on the threshold of a new age, or the threshold of a new time, or the threshold of a new scientific breakthrough. So I think the word is bigger than the physical, door frame.
We use it in Czech, we use it as a threshold of pain. So the limit of pain we can resist. So
we do that too.
Yes, yes. Okay, Google says threshold is the strip of wood or metal or stone forming the bottom of a doorway and crossed in entering a house or room. Another definition is the magnitude or intensity that must be exceeded for a certain reaction phenomenon result. Nothing happens until the signal passes the threshold.
Great. So it's both. It is the piece of wood, and it is, or the barrier and the barrier, as a physical barrier or a not physical barrier. It's really interesting.
Yeah. I always feel like I am on this side of the threshold. There's something there either pulling me or that I want to go. That resonates very deeply with me. I need to go there. I want to go there. There's something good for me there. And you just picked this word. Okay.
When I worked on the medieval castle, it was built 1123, I think. No thresholds in many rooms. In some there has been, but they are very high. So on contrary, it's like a small step generally. And I just wonder whether the people in the old times, because the function here, I see mostly that there is no wind under the door. Generally, there are no creatures scrolling under the door inside of the house. But I never saw another function generally. Of course, the threshold of pain and similar, this is what time to time is being used, but not today, in the old days. I don't think that many people use the term today.
I'm trying to, it's interesting that we have these words, right, and what their intent was. I think I would view threshold as a permeable barrier, something that's kind of meant to go through.
So if I take it into the current world of robotics and artificial intelligence, so it will be the humanoid robot. Generally, this is a threshold because it's combined both words. It should be the human shape, and at the same time, it's the machine. So I don't know whether you have seen the latest one introduced by Elon Musk. Generally, I think he called Optimus. I think, not sure. And German just now introduced a similar style, and Chinese has a lot of those. So
yeah, so we're on the way that I think we'd use that in English is that we say we're on the threshold of a new age of robotics, right? Or we are on the threshold of generative AI, you know, or we are on the threshold of accessible space tourism, you know, like we are, all these things are, you know, right on the edge.
Yeah.
So,
Bill, do you think cusp and threshold are interchangeable?
They're both old words. I don't know if the younger generations now, I don't know how big their vocabularies are, because threshold would be one of those words that is soon to be forgotten. Cusp, I think, ranks right up there with threshold as soon to be forgotten. I think it's I think that the average vocabulary is this big, and some people's vocabulary is this big. And in that space between the two are those two words, threshold and cusp. Don't see a difference. Do you see any difference between those two words?
Only that threshold can also represent the physical barrier in a doorway on the floor, you know?
Yep.
And cusp, maybe cusp is being on the edge, like a place, and threshold is a portal, maybe.
I see cusp as being um, less tangible. Threshold, I can hold a threshold. I can't hold a cusp.
Yeah.
But if you think of Industry 5.0, I don't think we are on the cusp of Industry 5.0. I think we have crossed it. We are beyond it. Cusp threshold. We are certainly on the threshold or cusp of a whole bunch of things. If you could make a list of how many things we are on the threshold of today, and if you made that same list 100 years ago, it would be a fairly short list.
And I think if you make that list 10 years or even 5 years from now, it'll be a completely different list.
A good friend of mine said that I've said this before, the pace of change today is the slowest you'll see for the rest of your life. And that keeps being proved correct.
I had a quite interesting set of talks about nothing recently, and in one I asked one of the guests who I know for 15 years or so. I asked him what he think is the strongest, let's say, feature of a Czech citizen, and he was not sure. But at the end, we spoke about being we are very good in improvising. So improvisation for us, it was generally Industry 5.0 entire concept was the improvisation on something which builds up into the system. But he answered a very interesting answer. He said, no more. Because the limits given to the people by the system, by ISO, by all these types of making things according to some prescriptions, let's say it, or so, it limit our ability to be flexible, to think. 10 years ago, I think, I stay on a stage. I have a keynote there, and I ask, who is the out-of-box thinker? And there was about 1,000 people in the room, and all the hands go up. At this moment, I knew I am not out-of-box thinker because I cannot see out. I cannot see the box. How do I know I look out of the box? So, and at that moment on the stage, I said to the people, great, but I am not anymore out-of-box thinker. I am the under the carpet looker, and I use the term abiforbal, you know it. Because, you know, under the carpet, you swipe the dirt, the bad things, and so on. And I just come in and look at it. I just look at it. And I think the carpet is frequently connected to a threshold, or the carpet is below the threshold because it's holding the carpet not to move. And maybe there is some connection, you know, because if you use it as to fix something to the ground already in the door, you do not want someone to see what is under the carpet anymore. When you enter my room in here, you know, Bill, I have shown it to you before. It's like a big toy store. So it's really very, very specific place. And you see on the faces of the people when they cross the threshold to my office that they are like children immediately, or they hate it. The second one, there is less than 1%, because these people expect money from me and investments and whatever. And I don't have it here, and I don't think I will ever have it. But it's quite interesting that it's really the next room, as you said it. It's so interesting.
It's funny that you say that, Michael, because I was thinking earlier on that if my experience in apartment buildings or even dormitories, right? You walk down a hallway and everything is the same in the hallway, but behind every door is a completely different environment. You know, some people have, you know, modern design, some people have traditional design, some places are clean, some places are dirty, some places smell great, like good food cooking, other places don't. Like it's all, you have a completely different sensory experience when you walk through a threshold in that context in an apartment. So it's interesting. People walking into your office you go from one state of awareness into a completely different environment that creates a different state of awareness.
It's interesting that you would say that, Noah, because I often think that about people that I pass walking on the beach or on the street. So here comes maybe it's a jogger, and I think, oh, good for him. But if I stop to talk with that person, oftentimes I'll say, "Oh, oh, isn't that interesting? Oh, you are in a very interesting place." And when we talk here, I'm I, like no, I'll just take you as an example. You're so deep. I could pass you on the beach or something like that, and I say, "Hey," but once you get to know the people, some of them, some of them are very deep when you cross that threshold, um, and fascinating. And what does that do to me? That invigorates me, that suggests things to me. Um, so it just like the apartment, just like you said about the apartments, right? I like that.
You know, it will be interesting to carry our threshold with us, to have it in the bag. And if you would like to enter somewhere, you put it on the ground and you just enter it, you know. It will be our personal threshold, physical threshold, which you said that you will go next week for the holiday with your grandchildren. You know, there will be the threshold for them. It will cross in the word of of adventures.
You know,
And
combining maybe those two thoughts, and this may be completely off base, but there's also a, I don't know why I thought of this. There's a threshold of intoxication, right? So if you're drinking or pot or doing whatever, you go from this state of mind of sobriety and cross some threshold into a completely different state of mind when you're under the influence of any drug. And Bill, it's really interesting that that's an internal, I like the idea of the external threshold, but it's very interesting that's an internal threshold that's not visible to anybody. And you can only get that through a meaningful interaction with the person.
and you can feel that. So, for example, when we get to this camp, I will open the back door, and my grandson's older grandson's name is Noah also, and I said, Noah, welcome to Tyler Place. And his mind will go from 5 hours in the car to this wonder, because he knows it, he's been there. And when we come home, I will open the back car door, and he will go from this land of wonder into 5 hours in the car again, right? And it's the you can feel that, um what's going on in his head. You can feel that.
And as you said about, as you spoke about the internal threshold, I never use drugs in my life. I generally don't drink alcohol, so I don't know what influence it has on me. But I was able 3 times to be in nirvana, and generally it's hard to describe. Unbelievable thing. You see yourself how the astral body is leaving the other body, and it's so interesting, but hard to describe. But it was exactly this stage. I think the only difference was that for me, it was uh, it was a consequence of. What was even more interesting, I didn't know what it is, because the books about meditation and so on came after I was in this stage. So about 5, 10 years. So I was as a kid able to do something which I have recognized 10 years later what it was. But I think it is even more impressive. And I do remember, as you said, Abel, I do remember we had a cottage on a river here, built by my granddad, I think. We don't have it anymore, but I do remember when the doors open there all the time, and I can go in the darkness to open the windows lids and so on. It was really, it was adventure. And you just bring me this memory, I have it all erased, but you just with your words take me back in the time. Thanks a lot.
So someone many years ago said, where is your happy place? And a long time ago, I defined my happy place, and it is up a staircase in a house that I lived in a long time ago. And then there is a room off to the right with windows all around. And it is a safe place. Nobody can get me there. I don't have worries there. It's just a very good place. And so when I find myself in difficult times, sometimes I will take a 5 or 10 minute break and go to my happy place. And the staircase, it's a dark staircase. There are no windows. It's a dark, the staircase is necessary for me. That is the threshold, right? I have to leave where I'm at, which means I have to clear my head, because all I'm concentrating on is the happy place. And so I walk up the stairs, and interestingly, the door is on the right rather than on the left to go into this room. So everybody needs to have a happy place that they can go when the burdens of life become too great. And that's a threshold.
Yeah, you know a lot of, because it's your main main expertise. You know a lot about love. It's a love a threshold, or it's in love the thresholds are there hidden, the thresholds. And is there one threshold for pair, for two who are in love is the same entering the room, or it still stay different?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Um, I think in a there's certainly a threshold, there's an emotional threshold, right, that we all hit, which releases the neurotransmitters that give us these feelings of love or any other emotion. So there's certainly a biochemical trigger for all these things. What's interesting, though, about that question when you're talking about romantic love or even any kind of deep partnership is that the thresholds are, I think they need to become transparent and at some point shared, right? So there are guardrails within a relationship where there are thresholds that should not be passed to keep the relationship healthy, right, and balanced. And there's some sort of agreement between partners about what those thresholds are, which is very interesting, because then you take the context of threshold that we've been using up until this point is very individual and singular. Right? What is my threshold? Where's my happy place? Reaching nirvana, having too much to drink, whatever it may be. But when you're in a deep relationship with another human being, perhaps one of the important foundations of that relationship is shared thresholds. And we don't really talk about that, but it's an important aspect of any relationship, a romantic relationship, a business relationship, a friendship, right? What's a non-negotiable? What will break that relationship? And what will break that relationship is one person going through a forbidden threshold. Or maybe even not joining the partner going through a common threshold.
Bill, you have mentioned your secret room. Have you ever invited someone in this room?
My safe room.
Safe room, sorry.
No. I don't know why. I have described it. No. I don't know why. But I know that description of shared thresholds. Is asking for more in-depth thought, because of the value of it, and maybe that's why some relationships don't work, is because they don't have a shared threshold. Hmm.
As I was saying that and thinking about thresholds in the context of love and partnership, I was thinking that maybe that's why the tradition is the husband carries the wife over the threshold into the new home. So they enter it together and it's simultaneous, and they go through that threshold together into a new life.
The only thing that I'm revolting about is him carrying her.
Yeah. Tradition.
I could not carry anybody today. We'll walk together.
But even this, so walking together through one common threshold. I think this is the point where, for me, you mentioned Industry 5.0, it's wasteless world. So for me, everybody who join, we join the same threshold. In the other room is the wasteless world. And I'm so happy that more and more people join. And what is interesting, for some people, the threshold is something like a barrier. It does not let them in. If they have a, let's call it, bad intention, it does not let them in. And it's so easy to recognize. So I do already now easily recognize the fake Industry 5.0 fake, the intention of the people. I recognize the fake reports which are sold and so on. Even some people try to connect with me, and you feel it. And you mentioned it, Bill. You feel the energy, and it doesn't matter that we are not in the same room. I get used to the online communication and this media, so it's like for me a form of the astral travel. It's a very similar. I feel that, and I can feel it in the digital world. The question is right now, with this AI and everything, what it make with the thresholds? Does it make the doorway smaller, or does it open it bigger? I don't know. I think
it's a new doorway. It's a brand new doorway that as a society and as species, we are going to walk through one way or the other. And it's an interesting question of how many people are going to go through that threshold and how many people are going to stay on the other side. I was thinking, I don't know what made me think of this, but it made me think of the Matrix, the scene in the Matrix where you did the red pill or the blue pill, right? And one of those pills leads to a threshold, leads to a portal, a different world, and the other doesn't. And it certainly makes for new adventures. Thresholds are doorways to adventure.
And it's more than a red pill and a blue pill, perhaps, because those who do walk through the threshold are changed. Nobody walks through unchanged. So, for example, with Zoom meetings, right? Rather than me getting on a plane and well, Noah and I would probably get on the same plane out of Hartford or Boston or something, to go to Prague so we could sit around in a room, but we are not unchanged, because when we are doing this Zoom, we have visual and audible, but the other three senses we don't have. We don't taste, we don't smell, we don't touch, right? Which is very different. Because I'll bet you, Michael, in your office there, it would feel different to me. I don't know if it is the air, the smells, there's something, it would feel different than me sitting in my own living room. So in AI and Zoom and all that, we don't cross the threshold unchanged. Also, I know if I was sitting in your office right now, Michael, if Noah and I were sitting there across the table from you, I would know that I've got an 8-hour flight to get home. So the threshold out of here is going to be a long one, and it's not going to be without a little bit of discomfort. Right now, when we're done in another few minutes, I get up and go have my lunch or whatever, go for a walk, whatever. That's easy. It's an easy threshold. And that is in the back of my mind. And it's the same when, I was bred in the grown-up world as a salesman. And they would always say, don't pick up the phone. Get in your car, go see them, sit across the table. You'll know so much more. And I agree with that. So this world that we now are on with our cell phones and our texting is it's an illness. It so distorts our reality. And to some degree, it's the same way with Zooming. Given the alternative of having nothing because I'm not coming to Prague today, it's very valuable. But we don't cross that threshold unchanged.
Bill, I think that's really interesting. Like thresholds are barriers for sure, and some are more permeable than others, some are easier than others, some are harder than others. But it was really interesting that you mentioned an airplane because every single time I board an airplane, I am aware of stepping from the jetway
Yeah.
into the fuselage, right? And I make that
Right.
step in, I cross that threshold from, land to the airplane, and I know those doors are going to be sealed, and I am sharing an experience with everybody else on that airplane, and it's a very interesting. Every single time, I actually usually reach out and touch the fuselage of the plane as I step over the gap.
Just like Adrian Monk.
Roughly.
No, but it was great, but we are on the threshold of time. We have
Yes,
less
we
than
are.
2 minutes, 1.5 minutes. And it was once again, this time I was completely unsure what will come because I didn't know the meaning of the word, but it was common for you. But it was once again so fascinating discussion that I'm looking forward to the next one. And I would like to wish you and everyone who is listening have a nice time, free of waste and wasting in all its forms. Stay safe, be free, be human, and I will say, enjoy every treasure. Thanks a lot, and see you next week. Bye-bye.